So we are using zeros to write polynomials, so we're kind of going backwards from what we'd been doing. We had polynomials, we came up with our zeros and our y-intercepts and whatnot. So we're going to write an equation that could represent the function. We know that our factors are x minus c, right? And we remember from yesterday that if I have this 4/3, it doesn't go in as 4/3, right? Because I'm not going to put a fraction in there. So if all I do is put my zeros in there, I don't know if a number got factored out in front or if a negative got factored out in front, because those don't affect my zeros. So we have to go and figure that out. So when I set this up, I'm going to have f of x equals, I don't know what a is, because again, a could be 1. Maybe nothing was factored out, but maybe something else that has a stretch or a compression or reflection even was. And then this right here gives me x plus 2. This does not give me x plus 4/3. It gives me what? 3x plus 4. Very good. And then times x minus 2. All right, so when I substitute it all in, that's what I get, but I need to figure out what a is. I know that since my y-intercept is 0, negative 32, that f of 0 equals negative 32. So if I find f of 0, that should equal negative 32. And that just means that I am substituting in 0 for x. That's how you get your y-intercept. So that equals a times 2 times 4 times negative 2. So that gives me negative 32 equals a times negative 16. So a equals what? 2. So then I can write my equation. It is f of x equals 2 times x plus 2 times 3x plus 4 times x minus 2. And there's your equation. Okay. What questions do you have? Easy enough? All right. You try number 2. Did we all at least get to this point? Let's talk about these numbers so we make sure we're doing the right thing here. Negative 12 equals a times. All right, so when I multiply all 4 of these together, is my answer going to be positive or negative? Positive. So then I can just ignore the sign. So really all I have to do is 2 squared of 3 times 2 squared of 3. What's that? Well, you're going to multiply 2 times 2. That gives you 4. What's the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? 3. So you get negative 12 equals a times 12. So a equals negative 1. Got to know how to handle your square roots correctly. Then that means in the end, f of x equals negative x plus 2 square root of 3, x minus 2 square root of 3, x plus 1, x minus 1, like so. Okay. What questions do you have? Anything? All right, so let's look at number 3. On number 3, I want you to go ahead and just do the first step. Just do the substituting in. That's all I want you to do. Do that and stop. gosh. All right, so when you substitute it in, that's what it should look like. When you substitute in something with more than one term, you use parentheses or you are going to math jail. And I'm not bailing you out, okay? So those are important because we're subtracting there. So then when I distribute that, I'm going to get f of x equals a times x plus 6 times x minus 2 minus the square root of 5 times x minus 2 plus the square root of 5. So now we can go find our we'll use our y-intercept to find a. So 18 is going to equal a times 6 times negative 2 minus the square root of 5 times negative 2 plus the square root of 5. When I go to multiply those together, I'm gonna leave all this first, and we're gonna just start by looking at that. When we multiply those two together, there's two terms in each. Does that look like a pattern that we have seen over and over and over and over again? What's the only difference between those two sets of parentheses? The plus and minus, right? So isn't that the same type of thing as if I had x plus 5 times x minus 5? Isn't negative 2 your x and the square root of 5 is your 5, right? What is this called? Difference of squares. This is x squared minus 25. You square the first one, minus you square the second one. So I'm going to square the first one. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4. And then minus the square root of 5 squared is what? 5. I don't know why my pen is being stupid. Okay, minus 5. So then I have 18 equals a times, well, 4 minus 5 is a negative 1, so that makes that negative 6. So a equals what? Negative 3. So then I can write out my equation. F of x equals negative 3 times x plus 6 times x minus 2 minus the square root of 5 times x minus 2 plus the square root of 5. And that's what it looks like. Okay. What questions do you have? Awesome. On number 4, we are going to change that 0 to negative 3. Just because I want something different to happen than what's going to happen. All right, so that when we write our original equation, f of x equals a times, okay, we have examples with multiplicity. So this is a negative 3, so this will be x plus 3, and then this will be x minus 1, and then that 5 halves becomes what? 2x minus 5. Good. And then it says multiplicity of 2, so it is squared. Okay, make sense? All right, so you go ahead and finish this one up. Okay, did we all at least get to here? Let's talk about the simple way to simplify when you don't have a calculator. If you don't know how many times 15 goes into 75, that's totally fine. Those are clearly both divisible by 5, and they're also both divisible by 3. To me, it's easier to divide them by 3. So if I divide them both by 3, that will give me 5 over 25, and then what does that reduce to? 1 over 5. So if it takes you more than one step to reduce, that's totally fine. Just get it down to something simpler and reduce a little bit along the way, so we get 1/5. So then we can write our equation, that is f of x equals 1/5 times x plus 3 times x minus 1 times 2x minus 5 squared. What questions do you have? We good? Awesome. All right, then you do number 5, all on your own there. That's what I've got. Double check yourself. Are there any questions? Yes. Oh, that's fine. Anything else? Awesome. So let's talk about complex zeros. All right. If a polynomial has a complex zero and at at a equals b plus I, and b cannot equal zero. Okay, because if b equals 0, then it's just a normal real number that we're used to. So if that happens, then its conjugate a minus bi is also a complex zero. So basically, you're not going to have just one zero or you're not going to have an odd number of zeros that are imaginary. You would have to have an even number because its pair has to be there. So when we look at number 6, and it tells us that we have our zeros are plus or minus the square root of 6, and then 2i, and it gives us our y-intercept. Since 2i is a 0, then negative 2i also has to be a 0. So when I write my equation, f of x equals a times, I will have x plus the square root of 6, x minus the square root of 6, then x plus 2i, and see if you can find a. Okay, let's talk about 2i times negative 2i. Well, 2 times a negative 2 is a negative 4. We agree with that? What is I times I? It's I squared. Good. So I times I equals I squared. But what does I squared equal? Negative 1, because that's the square root of negative 1 squared then, which is negative 1. So this is negative 1. So that means that 12 equals a times negative 24. So a equals negative 1/2. So f of x equals negative 1/2 times x plus the square root of 6 times x minus the square root of 6 times x plus 2i times x minus 2i. Okay. What questions do you have? All right. On number 7, they give me 2 zeros. Do I have another one? Would it just be negative I, though? 3 minus I, yeah, good. So 3 minus I. All right. So when we go to set this up, go ahead and substitute it in. Get your first step done. That's your first step, right? Because you need parentheses there. Now we're going to distribute those negatives, and we get f of x equals a times x plus 4 times x minus 3 minus I times x minus 3 plus I. All right, so now we're going to find our a. So I say 10 equals a times 4 times negative 3 minus I times negative 3 plus I. So 10 equals a times 4, and then we'll look at that. Is that a difference of squares again? Yes. So I square the first one. Negative 3 squared is a positive 9. Hang on. Is a positive 9 minus I squared, which is negative 1. So this gives me 10 equals a. So 9 minus a negative 1 is 10 times 4 is 40. So what does a equal? What does it equal? 1/4. 1/4. All right, so that means then that f of x equals 1/4 times x plus 4 times x minus 3 minus I times x minus 3 plus I. Okay. What questions do you have? Anything? We good? All right.